So this is part 2 in a 3-part series where I'm taking you through the construction of this building behind me, right from the ground up, all the way through. And I'm going to be talking about all the different choices that we've made, all the different choices you can make, and how they will impact on the budget and the finished job. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, then check in the description and a link to part 1 is there. So you might choose to watch that one first, which shows you how the building got to where we got at the start of this video. So this is day 5, first thing in the morning, and day 4's progress is the roof. As you can see, all the rafters are on. Now, we are currently just experiencing the outskirts of Storm Alex, which is mostly doing its damage in France, but we've got high winds and a lot of rain forecast. So how much we'll get done today, I'm not sure. So I apologise if there's a lot of wind noise in this little section of the recording. I'll keep it short for that reason. But as you can see, those templates that I made yesterday, we cut all of those around 60 and we got them right through. So they now go from that ridge beam, which we've placed all the way along, down to the plates, and that's our roof all set out. Now, when you do that, it's quite important that you put some diagonal bracings across, because that's the only thing that's stopping that whole ridge from basically collapsing. So that's that done. Our next job will be to put the purlins in, which are our intermediate supports. So effectively, for these rafters, you've got supports at the far end with the roof plate, in the middle with the ridge, and at this end with the roof plate. And we're going to put a support all the way through the building, halfway along those rafters, in the form of purlins. The size of purlins you want, again, you can work out from those Trada tables and the other sources that I steered you towards in part 1. We're actually going to be using some steel, some box section, because it worked out cheaper for this really long length we've got here. But everywhere else we'll just be using 6x2 timbers. So I'll wrap it up for now because of the weather, and I'll fill you in with the rest when we've got better filming conditions. So we are now nearing the end of day 5, and as you can see, we've got our Tyvek felt around the outside. I will reiterate again, Tyvek is a brand name, so this is a Tyvek equivalent. This isn't actually Tyvek, it's a different brand. But as you can see from the outside, we do need to come through and put some more staples on just to hold it in place overnight. Now that ultimately will be held in place by the cladding that goes around it, but this is what forms our breathable, waterproof membrane on our walls. Now, of course, looking at it from the outside, we're on the inside now, but you put the bottom sheet on first so that the next sheet up overlaps, so that any water running down the outside runs down over the lap rather than coming down inside the building. Sounds obvious, you'd be surprised how often people get that wrong. And we've also got most of our purlins through. So above me here, we've got our steel purlin and another one on that side. Now, what we've done is we worked out exactly where they needed to sit, and then we built this support which goes up underneath, and that enabled us to basically lift it up into place, and it held it there, which then shores up all the roof. And then we'll build that support and the purlin, we'll just build that into that gable as we build the rest of the timbers that will make up that gable. And that's how we're going to do it all the way through. The remaining purlins will be timber. So here above me you see the steel purlin, and then as we move down the building where that ends, we switch to a timber. Now this shoe above me is just temporary. I built a little socket that went on the end of the RSJ, or rather on the end of the steel box, and that allowed me to slot this purlin in so that I could fix the other end, because I'm here on my own at the moment. So this allowed me to carry on working while I'm on my own. And what we're doing here is we're literally going to fix the purlins to the rafters first, and then jack them up and support them from all of these internal walls. So that's going to be really what gets done for the rest of the day as well, is just finishing off those things we've started. We've had tremendous amount of rain today, so it's been another day when we might have got a little bit more done with better weather, but that's one thing we've got no control of. That's going to wrap us up, I think, for day 5. So in 5 days we have built the sole plate, the masonry that the structure is going to sit on. We've built all of our walls up to roof plate height. We've fitted most of our doors and windows. We've fitted our breathable membrane, which goes all the way around. You can see it a little bit clearer now from the outside. And we're also going to finish building our roof skeleton. So come next Monday, it's Friday today, so this is the last day for this week. But come Monday, what we'll be doing, and for me that's in 3 days time, for you guys it'll be in a few seconds. We'll be starting to actually put the roof on and start to make this building a little bit more watertight. But as you can see, I don't think we've done too bad for 5 days work. So it's the start of day 6, right at the start. So this represents 5 days of build time. And so you can see the roof's all through and the felt's all round, as I showed you before. What's happened is we obviously weren't here over the weekend, so we were here on Friday. It's now Monday morning, and in the meantime the insulation has gone on. This is insulation that the client has put in under our instruction. Now, as I said to you before, this is going to be used as temporary housing, so this is something that I wouldn't normally bother putting in, depending on the use of the building. Now, if you're building a summer house type structure that maybe you're going to want to sleep in, or an outside office, or something that's going to be habitable or in some way used by people through the winter, then definitely I would include this. But if you're just building a workshop or a shed, then I wouldn't worry too much. Now, the only thing to really bear in mind when you're putting this insulation in is you've got a couple of options. Firstly, you can use this rigid type of insulation, which is going to give you much better insulating values than rock wool. But what you need to do is just make sure there's a gap on the back of this. There's a gap between this insulation and that breathable felt membrane. That's going to help with condensation forming. We don't want condensation to form on the wrong side of that breathable membrane. So make sure you've got that little gap. And if you wanted to use rock wool, then you don't need to worry about that. It's going to be slightly cheaper, and that's a fiberglass insulation that comes in a roll, and that's going to fill the cavity, and that's fine. So it's going to be a little bit cheaper. So if you end up going that way, you don't need to worry too much about the gap. Today's plan is, as I said before, now we've got the walls up outside insofar as the solidity, you know, they've got that felt on there, so now they're available to be acting like a sail. So what we need to do is just make sure that we're nicely braced. Now at the moment we're doing that with these diagonal timbers in the corners of the room, but we're going to actually ply out the inside. We may or may not start plying the roof. It's going to depend on weather and things like that. So let's see how we get on. We've had 2 days of pretty much non-stop rain, so everything's a bit wet, but hopefully we're not due too much today. A little bit this afternoon is all. So I will catch up with you at the end of day 6 or the beginning of day 7. This is the start of either day 7 or 8. I'm not sure. We've lost a couple of half days to rain, so we're on roughly day 7 or 8, and this is the start. So as you can see, we are getting watertight. So today's job, we're going to be putting the glazing in these windows, the glazing that we have. Quite a lot of noise in here. I'll just explain why. So this half of the building, we've built the roof. The roof is on. And what that is, it's one level of just hardboard, just something to paint. Above that, we've got our insulation. And above that, we've got something called OSB, Sterling board, which is a type of timber chipboard. I might be able to show you a sheet. Now, it's all covered up because of the rain, but I will show you a sheet later. And the reason we use that board on the roof is because it's the best board for our felt to adhere to. It's the board you use if you're using a fiberglass roof as well. So that's what we've got up there. And on the back, we don't have anything yet. Because the OSB, which is the top board here, can't get wet, we've sheeted not only that half, but the whole half of the roof with this plastic DPM. Now, when we're finished with that, that DPM, which stands for damp-proof membrane, that DPM will be coming off the roof, and that will be used here on our floor as our damp-proof course, and I'll talk you all through that when we do it. But for now, this gives us a temporary watertight structure once our gables are complete and our glazing's in. So today's job then, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting just some of the ply on these walls, these internal walls, putting the felt on these gables, glazing the windows. So by the end of today, the building will be basically watertight. And the reason we're doing the ply is because the ply is effectively going to act as lots of bracing. It's going to shore the whole building up, make it much stronger to lateral forces that we're going to get from the wind. And when we're up on the roof working, it'll feel much more stable. These diagonal braces are doing a job at the moment, but if you imagine a sheet of ply here, or this whole wall with ply attached and lots of screws, it's effectively the same as lots of these in every diagonal direction, giving it lots and lots of lateral restraint. I'll probably speak to you in about another 24 hours or so. Okay, so here we are at the end of week 2. So we've lost probably 2 days in total to weather. Excuse the noise, that's this plastic temporary roof up there blowing around. So we've spent 8 days here in total. As you can see, we've started plying out these internal walls. Now, these ply boards serve 2 purposes. Obviously, they're going to give you something nice to fix to on the inside, but they're also going to add a lot of rigidity to the building and help with the bracing. All the doors and windows are now either in or they've been formed. So here's an opening for a window that hasn't arrived yet. I'm going to go outside now because this noise is a little bit too much. And as we come outside, as you can see, we've started putting on the cladding on this front. So we're just using a tongue and groove cladding. You could use shiplap, you could use feather edge, you could use rebated feather edge. You're spoiled for choice, really. It's going to come down to 3 things. 1 is going to be cost, 2 is going to be longevity, and the 3rd one is going to be looks. Now, this is untreated timber, so this is going to be treated by the client. This was part of the specification. It was a budgetary requirement, basically. It was one of the ways that the clients could keep costs down. But again, based on the type of building and the permanence of it, that's a decision you may or may not have available to you. So this will need treating, but obviously if you bought tannalized timber that was already pressure treated, then you wouldn't need to treat that. So what we've done to add the cladding is we've put these timbers on the edge, just these battens, which are fixed to obviously the uprights inside, and they've sailed out past just a little bit so that our cladding runs into it nicely. We're using full lengths of cladding, and then we'll have a panel here, and we'll put another strip straight up here to cover that join. This allows for a little bit of expansion and contraction, and it also just keeps everything nice and tidy, reduces wastage, which is really important. It means that you're using full lengths, you haven't got lots and lots of offcuts everywhere. So, as you can see, it's starting to take shape now, and I would think that the next video that I show you will be the completed project. So, stay tuned for that one. When part 3 has been made and is up on YouTube, there'll be a link for it down below. So have a look down there in the description, and if there's no link there, it means I still haven't made it. We're still working on this project, but if you're watching this, there should be a link down there, and you can go and watch the completed project summary there. Thanks for watching, and I will speak to you guys soon.